gosh, it's like the tactical lighting outside. When it hits like the back of the retinal apparatus, it is just blinding, but it takes your ability to think away for a brief moment. It like slices through. It's holy crow. All right, so they're talking this morning of several topics, but on See the BS, they're speaking of children with screen time. Now, again, my son came home with this. Between the grid and the ears, arrival in a 2-0. That would be like a score, by the way. You sent me 2 Americans, 0 of them are of the genealogy that I needed and the efficacy of for which, like, I was built for. So my children were born in the score of 2 and 0. So they make that the 20th century. In this simulation of epic proportions. So, I've got Death Star quality light. This morning, the house has been rattling and shaking with some kind of like hertz frequency vibration. I'm hoping that's a health ministry trying to redirect solar whatever in how do you tune a solar system. We don't talk about it. All right, so on the TV now, here's how the transition went from from an ear thing of 78 to a ear thing of 99 to an ear thing of 03, 05 to 12. 99 and 78. Well, actually, 78 got very little television. It was almost like it was like the babysitter because Lynn really couldn't be bothered. And we were in this exact living arrangement with I couldn't go outside because it was semi-city. Sometimes I would play with the children across the street, but I had to become older for that, whatever. So the TV became like this remote, just babysitter, I suppose. But at that time, it was rabbit ear stations of only 0 to 13, and she would put on like Reading Rainbow and Sesame Street and whatever was available. There were not that many programs. And that is in a color television, Technicolor, whatever. Not Technicolor, because I think that's when they go back to black and white, but whatever. So, and there was 0 phone time. There was like 0, everything was face to face. And it was localized. And we traveled just to see like my mom's brothers and sisters. And not a lot. I saw Judy probably the most. So now, that was that. Now, 99 rolls around in the wrong everything, headed to a 2 and 0. Let's see. In a 2 and 0. But in a 99, there was television, which Benjamin was able to watch, like Sesame Street with Elmo. I tried to take him and go out as much as possible. When I was working, he was with Linda. She seemed to do a better job with him than she did with me. Then 03 rolls around. Like, there was no video games. It was like slight television. We only had one television set in the entire house. Probably until we moved, yeah, it was until we moved to the row house when Benjamin was maybe 15, 16. That was it. There was no video game console. There was no computer. There was no computer time. I didn't even want to be on the computer. I wasn't letting them on the computer. For this idea of screen time. And then we would settle on the couch and we would watch something like Disney appropriate or Pixar appropriate, DreamWorks appropriate. Nickelodeon I really stayed away from because they had SpongeBob and I didn't like the dicey language or intimate, its intonation was very, I mean, I'm already in a low class, but it was even worse. So I tried to stay more Disney Pros for the kids and PROSE. Then there was one console. It didn't come into the house until Tia Frio arrived in 2010. And even then, I wasn't on board to even introduce it to the children for a while. Jason had one, but I didn't have one in the house. I didn't want them on it. So screen time has been, there was none, like little to none, to all of a sudden this gigantic leap in my own household. Now they're coming out with these guidelines where they're not supposed, it just says screen time. It doesn't say television or device like computer. But now they're saying less than an hour a day is what's recommended. I'm having between the children when I was totally in charge of the three children, and it was easy to say, no, we're not doing TV, turn it off, go outside. When I was in Ronkonkoma, because again, I had a half an acre Connecticut State Park, and there were outdoor, like, even though we didn't have community, there was outdoor things that they could do in the backyard and on the land and things. They could be creative and inventive. Here in Bayside, there's nothing. It's almost like it's purposely designed to force them onto the television and onto video games and to just sit around and just grow fat and dumb and lazy because there's no community center. There's no anything here for them. And ear thing number 12 on his year that he arrived, he's thin now, thank God, but I don't have like an athletic department like I can get him involved in. There's no they said that there's a Boy Scouts, but it's somewhere in Little Neck. And again, I don't have now. I have no money whatsoever to even get him involved in that. Because it requires buying uniforms and activity fees and things, which again, I don't have. So that's a problem. So now he's on this device because there's nothing else to do. Like, I mean, first of all, we tell him to read. He's just not wired right the system's not wired right for an ecological psychology. It's not wired right. And then on top of that, it's like we've entered this phase where they won't even, first of all, I'm in a phase where I try to pick up, I have to read this isn't even fourth grade, but fourth grade level material to try, and I can't even really grasp it in its totality where I could recite it. I'm looking for key up words because the lighting is interfering with the learning. But the light coming from outside measure, it's messing with the brain waves in some tactical whatever they're up to. In experimental, I didn't sign up for an experiment. It's just what it feels and looks like. So now my son, the ear thing 12, he's not even able to, like, in this acclimate, he should be able to read, and he should be able to read for hours. But for some reason, there's some kind of misprogramming, miswiring, whatever word you want to use. He is like just mindset of device. And for me, first of all, I'm suffering from my own issues with the degradation of society, opportunity, availability, and the weather, and documenting it to try to call for help somehow, somewhere. That it's like I don't even know how to get him out, because I'm at this point, like, I want to go back. I mean, I never wanted to stop physical activity, but I'm my joints are cracking and popping. I've put on this exorbitant amount of weight with no whatever. I'm suffering from anemia. I mean, like, there's like a, a list of, I don't want to go into it, but it's just the acclimate is so toxic that even if you have an athletic, but I have an athletic mindset of determination, motivation, focus, see it in the distance and go for it. I get that. I was wired that way. I still understand it. It's just this doesn't fit into it, doesn't sit into it, and there's no psychology crossover to what I'm going through and what I was built for and what I've lived as. And I have witness of living as. Eric was next to me with the elliptical, where I zone out to the end of the workout and I just zip line my way there, in whatever ailments I'm going through, that are not easily to tackle and overcome, but it's just, you just blindly just go. Which again goes back to more of like a soldier mentality, and I'm like, it's not like the female version of, how do you get female version, and again, I'm not going into that argument either. But anyway, so here's what they've got going on teleportation and television for guidelines, which, if I'm in Ronkonkoma, these guidelines make total sense. I'm like, yeah, okay. They go outside, they detach completely from the teleportation reality and from whatever this remote learning and the video games are. I totally agree. Once you get into a different setting, to more like urban, as opposed to, plus the phases of where the planet is aligned, with the garbage that they're pushing. Now it's a completely different. It's virtually, it's almost impossible to rewire the system from within with the building blocks that don't exist. Like, I know what building blocks I need. I just can't create those building blocks, and I can't perform without them. That's where I'm at.
Birthday. Happy birthday.
Well done. Slipping that in there.
So what do you got, Tony?
Well, I appreciate actually the delay, because I don't really know what I think yet about my talk at the table. Here's the big picture. It's about whether young children are getting the appropriate amount of screen time. Pediatric guidelines in this country and really all around the world they center on the idea that children under the age of 2 should have 0 screen time, and that children between the ages of 2 and 5 should get no more than 1 hour per day. So now there's this new study in JAMA Pediatrics.
Now, this source, I don't know where it comes from. Again, the picture doesn't always match the actual visualizing the BS that's trying, the cohort or the proponent, or the lobbyer, or whatever words you use in big important people. I'm just at the punished recipient end for some reason, conveying back to, no, I know there's a bunch of something somewhere. So now, I don't know why it was built this way, really. I have no idea, but it is what they want and their expectations are really difficult to deliver with this amount of civil unrest, first of all, pulling management in all sorts of alternate scenarios, new sector having to be built from scratch because of these like new underlying proponents that some knew about, but it's just to thread out and make really thin the what used to be very strength in numbers, in order to overturn numbers, which becomes a really dangerous feat within itself, but whatever. So now they're throwing in guidelines. Guidelines are whatever. Here's the thing, I don't see a career development plan anywhere in New York for my children. Not by sector, not something to intersect with a vector. I don't see any application or any effort on humans in humanity's part or in some social study. I don't see any effort being given to rectify what I arrived to. It's only progressively gotten worse, mixed in with ecological and economical. And then, oh, just for the topping on the cake, then numbers in what considers itself important and influential and promoters and players right now, they want some kind of a voice to either defend themselves and their people and their positions that built this really dangerous scenario and whatever, which would make it really difficult if there weren't an underlying, underseething, ancient whatever already thatched in weight.
Believed to be the first meta-analysis of whether kids are actually meeting these guidelines, and it finds they're not. Only 1 in 4 children younger than 2 is meeting that guideline of no screen time. And only 1 in 3 children, 2 to 5, is meeting that guideline of no more than 1 hour. And by the way, this is a 20-year meta-analysis.
Yeah.
It's pre-pandemic. Likely the numbers are even worse post-pandemic.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what I think about it because the idea is that more screen time is associated with behavioral problems and other issues, but it's not causal.
Is it? I mean, like, is that what the educated, is that how they speak? Just curious. Because it does absolutely no good with fixing the world for the children. We already noticed that knocked out of order, out of sorts. But, and I appreciate him, one, for bringing it to a theatrical visualization of, is that what the wine and cheese parties, is that what actually made it to college and to societies? Is that how they're discussing this amongst the other non-essential equipment? I'm just curious because I really don't see, I mean, are we dancing around the children, just giving them like a little something to go chew on that for a while, just don't get disruptive? I mean, like, the big people have, like, big jobs to do in correcting some, like, real serious things, because I really don't see any efforts being made. Are the voices of some getting too loud? I'm out of the loop on that one.
Causal. They can't work out whether that's a direct connection. It could just be that in households where the kid is spending more time in front of the screen, other things are going on.
But
also, 1 hour is preposterous. You're going to put a kid in front of Encanto and stop mid-song.
Yeah.
These aliens have 2 hours for a full movie, but I don't know. When I was a kid growing up, I was only allowed to have, and maybe it's not the same, 2 hours of TV a day, and that was it.
Oh, I grew up
And
on-
so I don't know if
There were no other options. They only fed in through the device. Maybe 2 hours of kid programming. Maybe. The rest was all for the adults.
I don't know if it's analogous because there's a lot more screens competing for attention. It's not just televisions, it's devices and PSPs. But it sounds like it's probably a good idea to limit.
I have no idea. He speaks, it's like a whole nother language. I don't know what a PSP is. A device, maybe. I mean, it's divisive, it's decisive, it's whatever. But PSP doesn't mean anything to like couch potato at this point.
Limit screen time, but my co-anchor at
Sounds
CBS
political.
News Streams, and Marie Green says I should write a book called "I'm Not a Parent, but I Got Opinions."
I grew up watching TV all the time, and I turned out okay.
I think parents need to do what they need to do. If you got to work, if you got to take a phone call.
If you're being poisoned and you're like dying a really slow, painful death, and the TV is some kind of mind numbing solution, and there are people actively making an effort to protect you and come save you, whatever on screen time, does it really matter? I mean, but if it's like they're pushing in this stuff to then force the non-activity and the medical park scenario, that's a problem. Just is. I wouldn't want to be part of it. I wouldn't want to force it on someone else. Star 1978, Star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe. Galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.